All right, folks, welcome in. It's another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast, and I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at BluffCity_media. You can also find 901 Soccer on Facebook. Just search 901 Soccer, and Bluff City Media is on Facebook as well. Just do like you did with the other one. Just search Bluff City Media. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe in the parlance of our times. And if you're not watching on YouTube, A, you should be, and B, go ahead and rate and review on whatever your podcast platform is. Tonight, we have Memphis 901 FC battles back and gets a 2-2 draw with Rhode Island FC. Lots of fireworks in this one. We're going to talk about that. May have been some refereeing decisions that we need to talk about, key match incidents. So we will definitely talk about that. The attendance, we'll discuss that, and then we'll close it out talking a little bit U.S. men's national team as they played Brazil down in Orlando tonight. I promise I won't get as upset as I was on Saturday. A variety of reasons for that. I know I said it was going to be earlier because the game started earlier tonight than it did on Saturday. It ended up being, here we are right about the same time recording. So that's okay. But the matter of the moment, Memphis 901 FC gets a 2-2 draw against Rhode Island FC. This was a game where Stephen Glass came right out and said it in the postgame. They were poor. I do not disagree with him. This is probably, I talk about it a lot, both on this show and on other shows where I make appearances, that Memphis 901 FC has not played badly in really any game this year except the first half of the Indy 11 game. I think tonight was probably the worst they've looked outside of that first half against Indy. They just weren't firing tonight. I don't know if it's because it was a quick, short turnaround. I don't know if it's because of something that Rhode Island did, but I think they didn't play particularly well. I think they know they didn't play particularly well. Coach Glass certainly knows that, and Coach Caleb certainly knows that because they both said so. The good news is that if this is the worst or second worst you've looked all season and you're still able to get a point out of it, then think how good it's going to be, how many points you're going to get when you play a lot better than they played tonight. And I think, again, tonight, the performance was a bit of an aberration. It's not something we've seen a whole lot this year, so I think you can just chalk it up to, honestly, you could probably just chalk it up to weeknight, short rest, second of 3 games in 8 days, and move on down the road. Not that there's not stuff that needed to be done better. There was. But one of the themes all offseason and all season was the character, the quality of the character of the guys on that team and in that locker room. And that really showed in the last few minutes of the game tonight because you're down 2-0. You feel like nothing's going your way. Very easily could have just packed it in and said, there's 3 to 5 minutes left. The hell with this. They didn't do that. They kept fighting and scrapping and clawing and finding ways to try to get stuff done. And I loved the way that Coach Glass put it at the end of the game. He was asked if, how do they feel after coming back from looking down and out? And the Coach Glass said, I think tonight proves that these guys are never down and out. I 100% agree with that. They're never down and out. We talk about that Indy game. That Indy 11 game, that first half was the worst they've looked all year, and they had a chance to tie it up with the last kick of the game. Almost the exact same thing tonight where they had a chance to win it with the last kick of the game, being down 2-0 in the 80-plus minute. Not, like I said, not a spectacular performance by any stretch of the imagination. The first half, you give up you give up a goal in the first 20 minutes, and you gave up. I think this is at least the 3rd straight game where 901 FC has conceded first. They definitely conceded first against Colorado Springs, and they conceded first against San Antonio. And I don't know if first is necessarily the right way to put it because that was the only goal got scored the whole game. But even going back to El Paso, they conceded first in that game, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like there aren't things to work on, but conceding first doesn't seem to cause problems or consternation for them. The second goal for Rhode Island FC, we will get to in a minute. We're like I said, we're going to be talking about the key match incidents. We will get there. Don't worry. But this team, they don't have any quit in them, and that's really good. And I love it because it reminds me a lot of that 2022 team. One of the things that Ben Pierman said repeatedly is we've got a very small group. We have a very short bench. So we need to make sure that these guys in the locker room are getting along and that they're all willing to go out there and go to war for each other. And you saw what happened in 2022. They were the number 2 seed and they won a home playoff game and had a chance to win another home playoff game that would have put them on the road in a 1-2 matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals. And they just came up short. And I think there were maybe 1 or 2 occasions last year where that wasn't always necessarily the case. There were some reasons for that, but no sense in dwelling on that now. And I think this year we've got a group of guys that it's very reminiscent of that 2022 team where they are all willing to go out there and do battle for each other. And the fact that they're all willing to go out there and do battle for each other means that when it looks like you're dead in the water, like it looked like they were tonight, that you can't count them out. It's almost like the 2012 San Jose Earthquakes team. Goonies never say die. I swear that team had more last-minute equalizers and winners than any team in history has had a right to. Now, they flamed out in the playoffs, but you can only live on the edge for so long. But this was a game where they played poorly. They were dead in the water, and they found a way to come back and get a point out of it. Would you have liked to have had all 3 points at home? Absolutely. Is the 1 point at home better than the no points at home? Yes, it is. So I love the mentality of this group. These guys have a winning mentality. They're right on the fringe of the playoff places, but as you can see on the ticker down there, that's 7 out of 8 league games without a loss. And the one loss was on the road against one of the historically good teams in the USL Championship. San Antonio won the title 2 years ago. So no shame in the result tonight. As Coach Glass said after the game, he thinks a draw was probably a fair result. And when we get to the key match incidents in a minute, that maybe one that didn't go 901 FC's way and one that did go 901 FC's way. So scoreboard wise, maybe they cancel out. That's not really a very good way for a referee to process information. But that is the way that the cookie crumbled. So all that being said, key match incidents. There were 3 really big ones. And this is what you would do in a referee debrief at a regional event is KMIs, key match incidents. What were the biggest moments in the game, essentially? You had the second goal for Rhode Island to make it 2-0. Obviously, a red card is always going to be a key match incident. And then you have the penalty, which is always going to be a key match incident. So let's start with the second Rhode Island goal. Makes it 2-0. But first and foremost, and I have typically, at least this year, really tried to stay away from blasting out any particular individual player. Now, the fact that the team has been playing pretty well has helped me do that. But Tyler Derrick's got to do better there. There are no two ways about that. I don't know if he just took his eye off the ball or if he got a little bit rushed or if he just whiffed on it. But if Tyler Derrick plays the ball the first time it gets played to him, we are not in a situation where we have to determine whether the referee's calling a foul, whether both players got to the ball at the same time, whether the ball ever actually crossed the line or not. So, but because he didn't do better with it, we now have to deal with this situation. In real time, I thought the ball crossed the line before there was any contact made. So I wasn't particularly upset. I hear the referee blow the whistle, and in my mind, he's blowing the whistle because he's looked over at his AR and his AR has signaled something. And typically in that situation, if the AR is signaling something, that means, hey, whole ball crossed the line, put the flag up, center looks over, we stop the game, I sprint up the touchline to signal goal. In real time, that's what it looked like happened. As it turns out, that was not actually the case. As it turns out, we got to see a replay where from almost not directly behind the goal, but like diagonally behind the goal. But it was right there. It was real close. And you see the ball rolling across, and you see Derek go down. Derek and the Rhode Island player, it looks like they get there just about the same time. And on the replay, you couldn't tell if it was exactly at the same moment or who got there first. If anybody got there first, it would probably be Tyler Derek. But you can't really see based on the angle because Derek's body is in the way. But it's very clear from the replay that the ball is not across the line. So my initial thought of the ball having crossed the line before the contact, thus rendering the contact irrelevant, that gets thrown out the window. So in real time, I was incorrect. As it turns out, what happens is the referee has blown his whistle for a foul, thinking that the Rhode Island player has gotten to Tyler Derek before, Derek's got the ball and the player has gone into him. And that's why the ball's crossed the line. So that's why we are restarting with a direct free kick inside the 6-yard box coming out. But after he's blown for the foul and signaled, the AR puts his flag up and takes off down the touchline. That's signaling goal. And I guess they got over there and talked about it. Well, I know they got over there and talked about it because I watched it happen. And the only thing I can guess is that the assistant referee was emphatic enough that he, in his view, he's like, no, the ball's over the line before the contact is made. Which in real time, I thought, so I can't blame them for thinking that. Replay says that's not the case. And Rhode Island's got the goal. So it's 2-0. So that's a key match incident that does not go 901 FC's way. Then you have real close to the end of the game. I don't remember exactly what minute, but it was 80-something plus, perhaps even as late as the 80, somewhere between the 85th and the 90th minute. And I think we lost a little bit of track of that because a variety of reasons. First is that Knight Pickering got just absolutely crushed. So you've got the red card on the goalkeeper for Dogso. The 4 Ds of Dogso, everybody. Let's go over those one more time. I know we've done it before. You have distance from goal, distance from ball, direction of the attack, defenders in the area. Those are the 4 Ds of Dogso. So all 4 of those are checked. Goalkeeper gets the straight red. You also maybe could have given him a straight red card for serious foul play for a challenge with excessive force because he absolutely got nowhere near the ball and absolutely just massacred Knight Pickering. Not so coincidentally, Knight Pickering comes off injured a few minutes later. That's one thing Stephen Glass said. They checked him out. We had to take him off to protect him. You're allowed an extra substitution for concussion protocol. So we took advantage of that, put somebody else on, and we'll look at him and see if he's good to go for Saturday. So that's a real easy red card for the referee right there. Free kick. Samuel Carriaga scores his second goal of the season. And his second goal of the season, oddly enough, from free kicks and right about the same spot on the field. He scored the opener at Loudoun United earlier this year. That was back during that 5-match losing streak. But I'm thinking from now on, if he's on the field and we got free kicks, he might be the one to do it. So that's your second key match incident. That one's stone cold, clear cut. Nobody's going to argue it. The only person who argued it, and we'll go get into this a little bit more, is what the hell is going on with the Rhode Island coaches tonight? I swear every single one of them had a problem with somebody from Memphis, and I don't know why. We'll get to that in a minute, and we'll touch on the Rhode Island keeper and perhaps why we had so much stoppage time tonight. We had 9 minutes. It's like the World Cup in Qatar. Third key match incident, penalty to Memphis 901 FC. Now, Stephen Glass on the record says he's not convinced that it's a penalty. I was a guest on a podcast in Rhode Island, Tide Talk, earlier this week. I mentioned that I've been a referee for a number of times and that the quality of the refereeing in the USL is much better than people give it credit for. Post-game, get the tweet, hey, don't try to defend the PRO. That wasn't good. I'm like, well, 4 Ds of dog so are met. Gave my reasoning for why I thought it was a good goal on the second Rhode Island goal. They say, yeah, that was a phantom penalty. Well, the problem is I didn't see it. So because of the way the windows in the press box are, it's one of the drawbacks to having soccer played in a baseball stadium is the sight line isn't great, especially from where we are to where the far penalty area is. But also the windows in the press box can like open and turn much the same way they can in most of the suites. So you've got big, giant, like metallic dividers between each section of the window that are like this thick. And so you have to do this and you have to do this. And I'm focused on typing. I'm going back and forth. And I think the biggest reason I missed the penalty is I'm having a look around this, but also the ball was, I think it was Turchi. The ball was so poorly played and it went way over there. And then all of a sudden, Marlon steps up and buries the penalty. So I'm trying to come at this from a variety of perspectives. Like the referee in me is inclined to not really care if Coach Glass thinks it is a penalty or it isn't a penalty. But the normal person in me says, if he doesn't think it's a penalty, I mean, it's probably not a penalty. I didn't have a good view of it. I'd have to go back and watch a good replay of it. Like I said, in real time, I missed it. I couldn't because I got distracted by the ball going way over here thinking, well, there goes your last best chance. And as it turns out, it was not the last best chance. One other thing about this, I mentioned it a second ago, the Rhode Island coaches. First off, I've never encountered this before. There was a Rhode Island assistant coach in the press box with us and was initially under the impression that he was just like a video assistant to like clip, key moments for them to watch at training or something like that. But he was relaying tactical information and instruction to the bench over his headphones or something. Because he was sitting probably 4 or 5 seats to my left, and he'd say, "Yeah, they've dropped Bruno down here. They've got Turchi over here, and they're playing this many at the back. And if we can put more pressure on the ball, and this, that, and the other." And I'm thinking, is that something that's allowed? I have no idea if it is or it isn't. This is the first time I've ever encountered it, so I don't know. I don't know. I just found that very strange. That's not anything that I've ever encountered before. I've covered this team on the road 3 times and have not been in the box with another coach relaying tactical information. I've done probably 75 Memphis 901 FC home games, and I've seen team social media staff in the press box before. They're doing their live tweets. Louisville has sent their people down here several times. I remember the very first year in 2019 when we hosted Nashville FC on a Wednesday night. They sent like 8 people to do Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I guess they were gearing up for their big MLS push. I don't know. But I've never seen like an assistant coach from another team in the press box with us relaying tactical information. So that was very strange. I had never seen that before. You also have at halftime, players walking off the field, coaches walking off the field, referees walking off the field. You've got Caleb Patterson-Sewell's having a chat. He's not overly animated, I don't think. They're just having a discussion, a conversation, probably just going, hey, on this, what was your reasoning? What's the call? Referee's telling, here's what I saw. Caleb's probably going, okay. Maybe doesn't necessarily agree with it, but isn't overly bent out of shape about it. For some strange reason, a Rhode Island assistant coach decided that he needed to be part of that conversation and jumps in there and is yelling at the refs and yelling at Caleb. And you could just tell, I have no idea what is being said because I'm way upstairs and this is down on the field. And Caleb is just sitting, I have to imagine it's just going, why are you here? Why are you talking to me? Like this has nothing to do with you. Go away. So I found that very strange that he would make a beeline instead of just going down his tunnel, which is to his left, and he goes to his right to yell at Caleb and the referees. I found that odd. Then when the Rhode Island goalkeeper got sent off for the dog show, you have to leave. When you are a player and you are sent off, you go bye-bye. You don't stay. You don't stay on the field. You don't hang out on the bench. Adios. We'll see you in 2 games. Because you're done for tonight and you're done for the next game. We won't be hearing from you anytime soon. And for some reason, he decided instead of just going off on the near touchline, like every other player at AutoZone Park that's been sent off, he went the long way, took the scenic route, went off by the technical areas. He's being escorted by his assistant and by AutoZone Park staff. And as he gets to behind the goal, and if you're in the Bluff City Mafia watching this, perhaps you can shed a little bit more insight on what happened, because the next thing I know, I look up and he's yelling at the fans and he's yelling at the stadium staff and he's yelling at Memphis 901 FC personnel, and he won't leave. And at this point, Carriaga's hit the free kick goal. For some reason, Akeem Ward got a yellow card after that. I'm going to assume it was for dissent, but I don't know why he would be upset and doing anything that would necessitate a yellow card for dissent. The keeper just got sent off and you just scored a free kick goal, and they weren't attempting to delay the restart of the kickoff by like holding onto the ball or anything. So I found that odd. And then my attention got absorbed by this same jackass assistant coach from Rhode Island that inserted himself into a conversation at the half that had nothing to do with him, is now trying to get into disagreements with, escorting his keeper off, and they're both arguing with 901 FC staff, AutoZone Park staff, and the fans. And I'm just sitting here like, again, it's policy, it's league policy. You've been sent off, you go bye-bye. But you're still here. And you're arguing with people for like, why? Are you arguing, like, did 901 FC give you the red card? No. Are they, like, I didn't understand that. So that was just an oddity that was really annoying. And then after the game, Rhode Island's head coach got into it with Lucas, of course, the referees, because there's nothing that Rhode Island FC could have done to prevent getting their keeper sent off and conceding a penalty and giving up 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game. So he's arguing with the referees. Then he and Lucas Turchi got into a little bit of a spat, some shoves and some words exchanged, and then he's walking off the field and turn around. It's that real macho. I'm around the boys, and I gotta nut up, I guess, and turn around and I'm walking away, but I'm still running my mouth, and Caleb's over there in the middle of all these players, and the coaches and the players seem to be, Stephen Glass is giving everybody, the handshake, the bro hug, and I just thought it was so odd that this he's leaving, but then he turns around and he's like, oh, and another thing. Like, bro, you go. The game is over. Why are you arguing with all of these people? What is your what is going on? So I don't know if the Rhode Island coaches just had a burr up their ass tonight or what was going on, but when you as a staff have a problem with the opposing team, the referees, the opposing fans, stadium security, and 901 FC event staff, maybe all of those other people aren't the problem. There's a common denominator, all of that, and it's you guys. Maybe you guys are the problem. So I just found that very strange and very frustrating, but also very entertaining. And that was one you could tell when the game was still going. You can scroll back through the Twitter feed. I put it, I was like, guys, there's going to be, this wasn't one of the I don't want to see fireworks nights, but I was like, you better believe there's going to be some fireworks after this final whistle goes. The way this game has ended, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings. It's also one of those situations where I do always get a kick out of it, where team feels hard done by referee, goes and mobs referee, opposing team, just to be dicks to the opposing players, goes to defend the referee. I don't think that we got there just quite tonight, but I've seen it happen, and that's something that has always made me laugh. Like, you guys have been on the ref's ass the whole game, but now that you have a chance to start screwing with the other team, you're very pro referee, like, leave him alone, get away from him. That's one thing that I've always found very funny. So that was a lot of that was very strange. I don't know how it could have been it could have been handled better. Like, if you're the stadium staff, I know there's somebody whose job it is after the game, get the referees off the field so stuff like tonight doesn't happen. Get them off the field, get them into the locker room. There's a reason that in every other sport they go. Get them off the field. When somebody's been tossed, get them off the field. Whether it's your job as coaches or stadium staff or whoever, I think they're need a little bit more pep in your step, a little more emphasis on let's move. Let's not just stand out here and hang around, because that's only going to cause problems. So, all that being said, the next thing I want to talk about is the attendance tonight. 2188, the crowd, obviously down from the last several games, but it's a Wednesday night. This was to be expected. If you go back and watch last Saturday's podcast, I told you, I was like, we had attendance go up back-to-back games. I don't expect that to be the case because it's Wednesday. And the good news is, while it was down from most of our Saturday games this year, we had a previous Wednesday night game in the Open Cup against Miami United. That was 14-25. So if you're looking for a little bit of positive spin zone there, and it's crazy that I have turned into Mr. Positivity. That's not something that I have been known for in the past. But if you're looking for a positive spin, here's how we're going to do it. That it's a Wednesday game, and it's a better crowd than your previous Wednesday game. I'd have to go back and look at some of the Wednesday. I think we had 2 or 3 Wednesday games last year. I'd have to go back and look at those, but I'd imagine it was somewhere in that neighborhood. So I think the real test is going to be this Saturday. And then this Saturday against New Mexico United, I should have put that in the ticker. I apologize for not doing that. Saturday against New Mexico United, unfortunately, I will not be there. I will be in Plano refereeing at President's Cup. The next home game following that is June 28th against Phoenix Rising. That's a Friday night home game. That's going to be the one where we're going to see if the summer of soccer is playing a part in I don't want to see attendance or not. That one, and then maybe the July 27th one against San Antonio. But we'll see. Would I have liked the crowd to have been better tonight? Absolutely. Is it still a little bit concerning that the numbers are this low? Absolutely. Is it a case of we're going to need to wait and see what the rest of the numbers look like for the next couple of home games before we decide whether this game was I don't even know where I'm going with that. So forget I said any of that. Moving on. Last thing we want to talk about tonight. U.S. men's national team gets a 1-1 draw with Brazil in front of almost entirely Brazilian fans in Orlando. That's the second time in 2 games where the United States has been the visiting team in their home country. That was not the case from about 2009 all the way up to about 2015, Mexico games in pro football stadiums notwithstanding. So, here's what I'll say. Obviously, the fact that this is the second time the U.S. has gotten a result against Brazil, that's impressive. This might be one of the weaker Brazilian teams we've seen for some time, based on some of their results in World Cup qualifying. All of the Berhalter defenders that came at me with the "it's just a friendly" after the Colombia game, you better keep that same mentality for "this is just a friendly" too. This result against Brazil, while admittedly is impressive, does absolutely nothing to change my mind about Greg Berhalter as a coach or what is going to happen to the U.S. at Copa America. The U.S. will have an ugly close win against Bolivia, who I believe lost 3-1 to Ecuador tonight up in Philadelphia. The U.S. will then have an ugly close win against Panama, which is nothing new. U.S.-Panama games dating back for the last 15 years have been rock fights. And then the U.S. will lose comprehensively to Uruguay, and then we'll get to play either Brazil or Colombia a second time in as many months, and that will be a laugher. And that will be the second worst performance from a U.S. men's national team in the last 4 appearances at the Copa America. And somehow, some way, it will be spun as a huge success and a massive step forward for this group. Because why actually try to win a competition in your home country when you could just use it as a stepping stone? Like, Copa America is the oldest soccer tournament in the world and is 2A, 2B in terms of prestige. It's one of the most prestigious, most important soccer tournaments in the world. I would say it's tied with the Euros, which start on Friday, behind the World Cup in level of importance. So to just sit here and pretend like it's a series of glorified friendlies that we're going to use as a stepping stone for the World Cup is asinine, especially when the writing is on the wall on how it's going to go. It's going to be underwhelming. It's going to be ugly. It is going to be boring. It is going to end with a quarterfinal loss to Brazil or Colombia after we finish runners-up in our group, because Uruguay is on fire right now. And somehow, it's going to be a huge, resounding success. Lest I remind you, we went to the semifinals in our last appearance in 2016. All right, that is going to wrap it up here for us tonight on the 901 Soccer Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I am your host, Lawrence Dockery. Find me on Twitter at LDoc93. Find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. Find Bluff City Media on Twitter at BluffCity_media. Search us on Facebook, 901 Soccer and Bluff City Media. And then on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. It drives interest. It drives traffic. If you disagree with anything that I've said tonight, please let me know. If you agree with anything I've said tonight, please let me know. I'd be happy to respond and engage with you. Don't be like the guy on Twitter tonight who was telling me that I wasn't paying attention to the game. I don't know how it's possible for me to not pay attention and yet relay all the information as it's happening. That was a first. Was asked, did they miss offside on the goal? I was like, not sure. Probably need to see a replay. No replay is necessary. Then why are you asking me if I think it's offside or not if you've already got your mind made up and it's so obvious? Well, you're very clearly not paying attention to the game. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to pay attention. That's my mistake. I'll do better next time. Oh, it's not hard to pay attention. And at this point, I was just getting irritated. I was having fun with it. I got to drop if you watched the podcast last Saturday, I got to drop a couple of Lord of the Rings quotes in there. So I got to do a pseudo Lord of the Rings quote. Then I got told how, because I haven't played, I'm not qualified to make determinations. And I was like, well, actually, I've been a referee for 17 years and I'm refereeing at a very high level regional event next week. So I'm actually quite qualified to be deciding whether it was offside or not. And then was told, well, the press box doesn't line up with the field, so there's no real way to determine. At which point it brings us all the way back to, why are you asking me in the first place? Anyway, so if you have normal disagreements or agreements, I'd be happy to engage with them. But if you're just going to ask me stupid questions and then tell me why any answer I give is not the right answer, I don't have time to deal with you. But if you want to be a sane, rational, normal person and say, here's why I think this is this, or here's why I agree with you for that being that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. But if you just want to ask me silly questions and then say, well, you're not in a position to answer them, I don't know what to do for you. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we will talk to you probably after the June 28th game against Phoenix Rising.